Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar. It is hosted by our great sponsor and partners, Engine. We have Chris Heuston and Tad Wamester with us today. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, sorry, Dad.
No.
My name is Chris Heuston, and I work as the Director of Apprenticeships at Front Range Community College. We're located in Colorado, and our college is about 27,000 students, and we serve a wide geographic region. And I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about some of the pre-apprenticeship work that we did with Engine.
Thanks, Chris. And good afternoon, everyone. Tad Wamester from Engine. Really interested in this conversation. I'm very passionate about apprenticeships and work-based learning opportunities, and hoping that we can share some best practices and strategies for you to launch pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. I'm going to share some slides and we'll get started. So today's topic is Jumpstarting Growth Sector English Language Pre-Apprenticeships. That's a word or a handful. But I promised you that launching pre-apprenticeship programs is not as hard as you think, and contextualized English language learning is an allowable activity and expense in apprenticeship programs. Chris said a quick hello. And I'm Tad Wamester. I'm Director of Partnership Development at Engine. I've been with Engine for about 4.5 years, and I have been working with adult English language learners for about 15 years. I'm an adult educator by training. I've done a lot of work with highly skilled, internationally trained professionals. And at Engine, we get to work with community colleges, nonprofits, employers, library systems, all different types of programs that are seeing new Americans, immigrants, and refugees, and helping them to connect with the career pathways they're looking for. Chris, anything else you wanted to share before we jump in?
No, I just am excited to talk a little bit about our work and also just in the work I've done in apprenticeships. So happy to answer any questions in regards to that as well. Thank you.
Excellent. So I did see that people are introducing themselves in the chat. That is wonderful. Also, please feel free to add questions in the Q&A. I'll be checking that every so often because we would love to make this interactive and make sure that it meets your needs. I'm going to start off with setting the scene and also an introduction to Engine before we go into some of the pre-apprenticeship programs at Front Range Community College. Why this topic is so important is the content on the slide. We are emerging, from the COVID-19 pandemic, hopefully stronger and smarter than ever. But it was a very difficult time in education as well as in healthcare. We were seeing massive exits from the healthcare industry and healthcare jobs. It was an incredibly stressful time. And very common, about 28% of those individuals were quitting because of burnout. And what's interesting is that with these exits from the healthcare workforce, this is an industry that is growing. So the demand for jobs is huge. And we really need to fill these positions to benefit the entire community. Everyone needs healthcare. So building healthcare talent pipelines is an incredibly important topic. This is something that, I've been working in this field for many years now, and I have seen that it is a moment of change. Workforce development programs are really waking up to the needs of immigrant and refugee workers, learners, because it's an opportunity and a necessity. We have over 2 million highly skilled, immigrants who have degrees, the ability to work and who are either unemployed or underemployed. So that is a waste of talent in our communities. English language skills, they are the number one tool and barrier to integration and access to career opportunity. Unfortunately, we do see English language learner enrollment in higher education and programs often declining. Many reasons for this. We have a strong job market, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the barriers. But why this is important is that individuals without the English language skills that they need earn 15 to 25% less than those who do speak English, even if their degrees and credentials from their home country should suggest that they have the skills and earning potential. There are many reasons, and this is a difficult and challenging statement to make, that traditional English language learning ESL programs are not meeting the needs of working adults. Well, again, we think about working adults. There are reasons why we're not meeting the needs. One, often programs are relying on outdated or ineffective curriculum and program models, things that are not flexible. And flexible in a way that can break down barriers, because there are significant barriers to participation in programs. We have childcare, transportation, also fixed or irregular work schedules. Either one can be a barrier, and many individuals are working multiple jobs. There's a shortage of providers. There's not enough funding for adult education programs. And so the Migration Policy Institute estimates that we're only reaching about 4% of adult English language learners. We believe that innovative and workforce-focused programs are the solution and are going to help move the needle on that 4% that are being served. Another thing at Engine that we like to talk about is that workplaces are ideal environments for English language learning, because those learners get to apply what they're learning, when we're building these digital or flexible blended learning programs, instructors and program administrators, they can actually see what learners are doing. So there's a good amount of data when you're using digital tools. And as the language skills are relevant to the learner's workplace, they're going to improve confidence, they're going to have the ability to practice, and English language skills are rapidly developed. I want to step back and just make the statement that, English language learning, it is skills acquisition. So it's not just studying a content area. And I like this image because it shows people who are learning to cook. And you don't learn to cook by reading textbooks from cover to cover. You have to practice. You have to experiment. And you also have to make mistakes along the way, get feedback. And you'll see that, following directions, measuring, preheating the oven, all of these things are important things that are learned, in context. And that's why these learners are learning to cook in a kitchen. Language learning is similar. You do need practice, experimentation, feedback, and you will make mistakes along the way. So this image really helps to illustrate what Engine is. We want to be a bridge to opportunity, to workforce development programs. We use, vocational or industry-specific English language learning to accelerate that journey. And the platform can be used in, workplace literacy programs, career pathway or bridge programs. It can be used to help build up pipelines for IET programs, CTE, and apprenticeships, which is what we're talking about, those pre-apprenticeship pipelines. We also see this tool being used with immigrant and refugee entrepreneurship programs that are specialized on those internationally trained professionals. So many different use cases for Engine. Well, what is Engine? Well, at our core, we're a social impact organization. We're very focused on our mission of breaking down barriers to English language learning. Again, we want to move the needle on the 4% of adult English language learners that are being served. and increase equity and access to opportunity at scale. Work-based learning opportunities and those earn and learn models are really conducive to this population because they need to work. They're looking for employment opportunity, but how do we combine that with, skills acquisition and upskilling? So what Engine brings to the table is a web and mobile platform where learners get a highly personalized experience. It's personalized based on their native language, their career goals, their interest areas, and their performance. So it adapts in real time. It's an easy to run platform. It's been used by thousands of different organizations. And also we have a growing, career pathway catalog. We typically add about 2 new pathways every month. The last pathway we added was English for getting a driver's license. Again, thinking about that transportation barrier and trying to break it down. We develop these pathways from real world, pieces of content and media. So they're developed from news articles and technical training programs, employer-specific materials that are transformed into language lessons. And you can see what your learners are doing in terms of their time on task, the lessons, units, and courses that are being completed, and their scores in end-of-unit assessments. So it can be used to understand, is a learner ready for a technical training program, and to support their likelihood of success. Engine is being used in different ways. Again, workplace English programs, bridge programs, IETs, and pre-apprenticeship programs. And even at some institutions, it's being used in multiple different ways because it's a highly configurable platform. We utilize task-based language teaching. So really answering that question, what is someone trying to do with English? Everything is contextualized. We add new courses every month, and we actually add new lessons every day based on current events, news articles, or new topics that are being added to the platform. Why do we think that technology is so important? Well, it can help teachers to do more. We leverage technology for what computers can do best so that people can do what humans and teachers do best. Technology can allow us to reach more learners, can remove barriers to access, especially when the solutions include mobile solutions. It can also individualize instruction. As I mentioned, Engine adapts to a learner's native language. We support, I believe we're over 70 native languages right now with those keyword and context translations. But also you can individualize the instruction by level and by interest. The more that an individual is interested in the content that they're learning, the more engaged they will be. Also, technology, you can measure progress. You can optimize learning for competency-based models. Again, that's meeting the needs of diverse learners at different levels. And also, and this one is highlighted for a reason, provide contextualized English language learning, as an on-ramp to apprenticeship programs. And we have been focused on, adding courses that align with apprenticeship opportunities, whether that is in healthcare, technology, education, skilled trades. We do have content that can be used really out of the box for pre-apprenticeship programs. We even added, some content that supports the NCLEX, so we can help foreign trained nurses, as well as those English language learners who are pursuing a nursing career pathway. So thanks for giving me, that introduction of Engine. I wanted to set the stage. And now I'm going to pass it over to Chris to share more about how Front Range Community College is growing their apprenticeships, creating, opportunities for English language learners to participate in those apprenticeships, and really meeting the needs of both the learners and employers in the local community.
Thank you, Tad. And if you don't mind driving the slides as we go along, but before we get started, I wanted to just emphasize a few points that Tad had made. that we do have an ever demanding need for workers in healthcare. And Tad talked about the impact that COVID had and the exit that we're seeing, but we also expect a 10 to 20% growth in the need for entry-level positions. And these are those positions that need a 2-year degree or less. And one thing that I'd like to note in healthcare is that for every MD that you train and hire, you need 2 bachelor's level individuals, such as a nurse, but you need 7 individuals that are in allied career fields. So these are those fields that are 2-year degree and less. And that really is the engine, if you don't mind me saying, of the healthcare system, is these individuals who have highly skilled need in the healthcare, but there are just not enough of those individuals to fill. And Todd, when you mentioned that, only 4% of the adult learners are out there, are second language learners, there's a whole tap of individuals that these occupations are searching for. And when we use the pathway of an apprenticeship and we get skills to get people ready for the workforce, it can really be a win-win. So thank you. Next slide. So the reason that Front Range Community College really engaged in starting apprenticeship programs, we had a grant. So the U.S. Department of Labor is really investing in an apprenticeship pathway, which for most of you have probably heard of in the trades, but we really haven't seen apprenticeships in other models within occupation sectors. So our talk today is more about what we've done in healthcare, but we at our institution are expanding into many other areas looking at this. And the reason that we really got to this point with apprenticeships is that so many of our employers could not meet the needs of an entry-level position that was highly trained. And the reason that the colleges wanted to attach to that is that really we are reaching a point right now in higher education where we're seeing declines in enrollment because people are questioning the value of higher education. But when we look at top tier jobs and the requirements for certifications and post-secondary education, we know that these pathways through our institutions are really critical for living wages as individuals move through their employment. And then one of the things to Tad's point too is about the equity and the access components. We found that we actually increased our diverse learners by 12% in our medical assisting program by adding the pathway of an apprenticeship. So again, what we're hoping to do is capture more individuals that don't have the skills that they need and move them into paid employment. Next slide. And that slide we just saw, by the way, we started this in February of 2020. So you can imagine what a big lift apprenticeships in healthcare were in March of 2020. But that group was our first group of apprentices, and they were highly involved in doing COVID testing from day one. So when the institutions of higher ed shut down, we were able by a governor's order to continue to operate our training programs in an apprenticeship model. So one of the reasons that we started a pre-apprenticeship, well, there's 3 reasons why we did that. The first is more and more employers are leaning into this idea of an apprenticeship where you hire an individual at the same time they're receiving related instruction at our institution. That employer is investing in that employee by providing them that hands-on learning, that mentorship, and they're seeing the results in better retention, better training. And so what we found is that we needed to get more individuals entering apprenticeships. But when we talked to employers, there were some key components that were missing. And one of them was if you survey individuals who want to go into healthcare, they don't know of all the occupations that they can apply for. They think doctor, they think nurse, maybe they think licensed nurse, but they don't understand all the technicians that are supporting those credentials. As I mentioned, that 7-to-1 ratio, if you think about that, how many people the last time you engaged in a healthcare system, how many systems or people you touched before you even got to your provider? So we wanted to make sure that we were getting the individuals the ability to learn more about healthcare careers. We also found that many of our employers noted that many of these apprentices were lacking in 21st century skills, previously noted as soft skills, but really essential skills. And we also found that sometimes our individuals who wanted to scale in their careers that were currently working in healthcare needed those English language skills to be more successful, to have more patient-facing interactions. So for example, many of our apprentices come from maybe the nutrition side of the house in a hospital system or the environmental services, and our employers want to keep their employees, but they're using apprenticeships as a way to upskill. So pre-apprenticeships are really geared to really honing in on the skills needed to be successful as an apprentice. So not only looking at those English language skills, but helping them develop resumes and interview skills, also getting their CPR certifications, and then really helping them apply for more apprenticeship opportunities. Next slide. So one of the reasons that I enjoyed working with Engine in our pre-apprenticeship, and what we did just as a little background, is we targeted our ESL program here at Front Range Community College. We went into our ESL program and we surveyed students of what they wanted to get out of their programming. And not only did they want to gather more English language skills, but they wanted to get into the workforce. And so we felt that this was an opportunity to help individuals get the skills that they needed to be successful in applying for apprenticeships. So the thing that I am a longtime faculty member and have worked at the community college for almost 30 years. And what I've really found is that when you can contextualize training, that simulation and that integration of those skills becomes really the norm. So instead of teaching just basic English skills, we utilized Engine so that they could have contextualized training for phlebotomy or contextualized training for medical assisting. So when we ran this first group, we just did the general healthcare so that it really was a broad scope. We've also offered Engine to some of our employers to say, do you have individuals that may want to upskill into other jobs, but need a skill of expanding their English language? When we surveyed students, we felt that the platform was very easy to digest because the content was offered, and Tad will talk a little bit more about this, in very small sectors. So if they were able to do 15 minutes at a time, they were able to complete some of these, the content, because instead of having like a 2-hour class, these sessions are broken into chunks, and that made it very doable for our learners. We also had one of our ESL, our English second language faculty, review the platform. And that was really helpful because when you provide something to students as an optional activity, it's not always completed. But when our faculty was engaged in that, then she could use some of those English skills, those English learning in the classroom. So she was able to pull out some of the items that students were learning on the platform when she met with them face to face. And as I mentioned, our pre-apprentices self-selected if they wanted to do Engine. So that's one thing I think as we expand this, we would really want all students to engage because we think that it can provide valuable skills. All right, next slide, please. So again, we plan to continue to use this in our pre-apprenticeship work with our ESL group. And what we wanted to do is provide more incentives for completion. That was one thing that we found, that when we didn't tie it in as a requirement, many students didn't see the value. But when the students did use the modules, they were highly effective and they rated them very high. We also want to make it more accessible and promote this as a tool. And so one of the things we're considering doing is some type of pre-test to identify who might benefit most from these modules. As I mentioned, we've provided some of these to our local employers so that they can use these further to upskill language learners. And we are really looking at expanding the use for some of our other career and technical programs in healthcare. Next slide. So I'll let Tad talk a little bit about this, but I have just been very happy with the skills that our students in our pre-apprenticeship were able to gain, both in their English language and then some of the other skills for the pre-apprenticeship. So happy to answer any other questions you have about some of our apprenticeship work here at the college. Thanks, Tad.
Chris, I had one question, and I
Yeah.
encourage people, please, you have such an expert on apprenticeship in Chris on today's webinar. So please put your questions into the chat or the Q&A. You just mentioned recently incentives. Can you share a little bit more about what those types of incentives look like?
Well, thank you, Tad, for that. And so again, I kind of come back to the traditional teaching model where you have, okay, your grade is going to be based on these things. You do these things, you'll get this grade. But many of our ESL courses aren't kind of built around that. It's built around kind of, here's the recommended pieces that you complete. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at is how do we incentivize people to continue to use these? And in a traditional teaching model, you kind of think, oh, I'll give them points for things. But we wanted to kind of tie it to, well, once you complete these modules, we will set up a shadowing opportunity for you to go and look at what some of these jobs are like. So that we want to have them have the skills to be comfortable in a healthcare setting, but we also want to incentivize them by giving them an opportunity to explore a healthcare setting. So that's one of the tools that we are looking to use is either a on-the-job shadow or even a informational interview. And I put that kind of in air quotes because we don't want them to feel pressured or stressed to be in a formal interview, but an ability to practice some of what they're learning with a potential employer.
And then we do seem to be having some questions come in. One of them was what was the level of ESL learners that are able to access pre-apprenticeship programs?
Yes, that's a great question. And we used our higher level. So I think we have 3 levels of ESL learners in our program, and we chose the students that were in that highest level because those were the students that were getting ready to want to launch into occupational career. And Laura, I see your question. Our pre-apprenticeship programs were built at around 20 hours. So we felt that they needed to be small enough that people could fit them in, and we offered them in a wide variety of formats. We did 3 Saturdays in a row. We did for this pre-apprenticeship group with Engine, we did I think it was 4 Wednesday afternoons, and this summer we offered them as 1 week morning sessions, so 4 hours 5 days during the week. So the 20 hours seems to be a good number of hours. I like the flexibility of being able to offer them in different formats to meet different needs. And I will note, I mean, Front Range has had tremendous success. We've trained over 400 apprentices in about 6 different occupations in healthcare. And just since January, we're expanding into advanced manufacturing and IT and automotive. And we have probably about another 60 that are onboarding right now. So it's a wonderful time to work with employers because they're excited to look at different ways to hire and train and onboard. In Colorado, we have 2 job openings for every human that is able to work in the state. That is able, and when I say able, meaning qualified to work. So this is why we have to look at other mechanisms to ensure that we get those qualifications to those people that aren't in that pool, or we won't be able to fill our job pipeline.
And I see that there's a question about, digital literacy. I think that is one change that I've seen through the pandemic is that now ESOL programs are recognizing that digital literacy skills are foundational. And so, you have to address those up front, even with your, beginner and, high beginner learners, get them using technology as soon as possible because the real world is accessed, through technology.
Yeah, and Tad, I would agree with that. And we do, when we offer our pre-apprenticeship, we have an online platform that we put the content. We don't require that they do a lot of online learning, but every day they come to class, we log in and we have notes and the lectures and things like that, so that at least we're connecting them to some of the online learning management systems that are used, so that if and when they enter an apprenticeship, we do a lot of online coursework, they at least have a level of comfort. And then your question, Molly, about challenges with persistence. Yes, I would say of our cohort of about, I think it was about 16 students, we had 4 complete all of their Engine modules. And I think the thing that I would change is some of those incentives, but also in talking with the faculty that taught this, having her pull more of the content into her actual classroom that was done on Engine, I think would be very helpful. I think what's hard is not everybody in the class wants to go into healthcare. So I think our healthcare pre-apprenticeships, yes, but healthcare pre-apprenticeship was one course, but then she had a whole separate ESL course. That piece, I think, could really see the use of Engine a little bit more. So I don't know if that helped. I think the involvement of the faculty does help with the persistence, having that human that is also logged in to Engine. And so that person can kind of say, hey, I see that you've only completed 4 of your 6 modules. Do you have any questions? It just is a reminder to stay engaged.
Yeah, and we definitely try to make sure that, in our administrative tool, that instructors can see what learners are doing. Have they completed the homework that they've been assigned? Have they completed the course? I do see some questions about assessment, and I do know that the ESL programs at Front Range do use standardized assessments. Do you know which they're using?
I don't, Virginia, but I'm happy to ask our faculty and get back to you if you want to type your email there. That's a great question, and that's something that we're trying to kind of filter out. So I appreciate that.
And then there was one other.
I see one, Joanna, when engaging with employers to bring ESL to the workplace, how are the costs addressed? Well, excellent question. I'm still working under a U.S. Department of Labor grant fund. And so we're able to purchase some of those licenses from Engine and offer those up. I do think it's very cost effective, and Tad can talk about this more, but you can have multiple users. So it's not kind of one and done. It just depends on who's using at that time. So I think that was very effective in that we could offer those for free.
And then I see that Naima was asking about beginner level students. I don't think that's the focus of this pre-apprenticeship program, although Engine has been adding more courses, more content for beginner level learners that is contextualized, whether it's to, hotel, hospitality, workplace safety, and even some of our healthcare content is at the beginner level so that they can step up into some of the more advanced courses. And of course, Darlie, I see that, organizations, who are interested in Engine, I will be following up from the folks on this webinar. I'll send you the slides. I'll send you more information about Engine. So if you are interested in learning more, you can reach out to me. All right. We are going to have more time for questions at the end. A couple more slides. I do want to share that we have been working with other institutions of higher ed and adult education to create pre-apprenticeship opportunities. This is one program that we've been running with the Advance organization. They're out in Lake Tahoe. And they also have apprenticeship funding for ski lift maintenance operators and forestry. So we did create some content that is contextualized to ski lift maintenance operators so that English language learners can have access to these earn and learn opportunities that are available. And also we're working on some forestry pre-apprenticeship content because that is another apprenticeship program they have. At Engine, I mentioned that we're always creating new content. We recently added English for artificial intelligence and English for getting a driver's license. And this last spring, we focused on some adding beginner level content for workplace safety, for hospitality, for hotel customer service. This is not everything that's in the Engine platform. We actually have over 130 pathways, but I did take a snapshot in time of about 20 months, and I looked at what did we create over those 20 months. And these were the pathways that were created, ranging from manufacturing, skilled trades, healthcare, English for a commercial driver's license. So we're always adding new content, and we really are responsive to our partners. and saying, what do they need? What is in demand? Just as an example, for the state of Colorado, we're working on English for cloud computing and cybersecurity pathways, and MRI tech. So, whether it's healthcare careers, technology, we are aligning with, the most in-demand jobs. I do want to share, before we go back to questions, I want to share some insights from our 2023 worker survey. We surveyed over 6,000 engine learners coming from either, employer-based English language upskilling programs, as well as, English language learning programs at community colleges, libraries, and through other partners. There were over 230 companies represented, and we came out with 5 key insights that I want to share. The first insight is that English upskilling can enable employers to grow their talent pool and also retain their workers. So these were some statistics from the survey. 89% of the learners were likely to stay with their company because of having English engine as an employee benefit. Also, 84% of learners were likely to refer a friend to their company because they appreciated having English as a benefit. And we see this in immigrant and refugee communities, that they do spread the word about, quality employers. Insight number 2, and this is something that, I would see over and over in my work with internationally trained professionals, that confidence is so important. The vast majority, 95% of engine learners improved their confidence using English, and also saved time at work, and it built skills as well as the language that related to their workplace, so they're able to be more successful. Insight number 3, that English upskilling does belong in the flow of work. These learners are improving their job skills as a result of using Engine. Also, they are reporting that this is helping them to achieve career goals, whether that's getting a raise, getting a promotion, getting a new job. That's one of the real benefits about apprenticeship, is that there are these opportunities to, through competency-based models, to prove that you have skills and to get either a wage gain or a new job as a result of it. Insight number 4, and we really believe that the more that you can make content relevant to the population, there are going to be better outcomes. So, as learners are more interested in the content, they are going to be more engaged. So we're very proud of our Net Promoter Score. A score of 30 is viewed as a strong Net Promoter Score, and we have almost 55. So learners are, finding this, career-aligned approach to be more effective than, general English language learning. And lastly, going back to that digital literacy question, 2/3 of the learners are over 40. And these learners are able to engage with technology. Don't think that because someone is a beginner or because of their age that they're not able to use technology, because we are seeing that adults of all ages and all proficiency levels are able to use digital tools. So I want to go back to questions. I did see some. And Dion, I do want to share right at the end of today's session. I am going to share some of the pathways so that you can see what that will look like. So we will get to that. Absolutely. I do want to show you examples of some of our pathways.
And Ted, there was one question: do beginner students get set up for Engine? And our beginner ESL students do not. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and we have a rule of thumb is that as you're working with lower lower proficiency level learners, individuals with digital literacy challenges. It's more important to offer that support as a component of the program and upfront, because learners may need help with downloading the app or getting signed in. But sometimes the hardest part is just taking that first step. And I want to see, yes, there is a reference to Upwardly Global. I worked there for 10 years, as well as the Welcome Back Center. We are working with the Welcome Back Center in Colorado, at the Spring Institute, to help foreign trained nurses get re-credentialed, as well as other learning opportunities. If there are any other questions for myself or Chris, please share those right now. I'm going to pause for 1 second because there was a question about wanting to see.
There is a question about a pathway for undocumented immigrants, and I'm not sure who that question is for, but for our apprenticeships, because they're paid and employed, all of our apprentices have to be able to work. So if that was the question for me, I don't know if, Tad, you have anything to add to that.
Well, at Engine, we are a solution that, colleges and libraries purchase. So they would set the requirements for their, learner population as to whether they, require, work authorization or documentation. It really depends on the program. There are many programs that do not ask for documentation as a part of their program. So I want to take just a minute or two to show you a couple examples of Engine courses. So this is our English for EMTs, Emergency Medical Technicians. This pathway is about 105 lessons. That's going to take between 10 to 12 hours of total study time, but it's broken up into, micro learning experiences. And the topics that someone is learning, English with directly align to the, the vocabulary, the topics, the concepts that someone is going to need to be able to participate in an emergency medical technician training program. So this learner is going to, learn that key vocabulary. They're going to be learning English through the, situations that someone will encounter. And also they're introduced to basic concepts of human anatomy and physiology. Another example of a course, this is one of our courses that's aligned with skilled trades and electrical technician. This is shorter. This is about 60 lessons, so around 6 hours of content. But this is aligned with the English someone will need to be able to participate in an electrical technician training program. So you'll see they're going to learn about, conductors, power sources, and components, real-world installations and applications of how to use electricity, and they're going to understand key terminology, units, and concepts central to working with electricity. Another course example, English for commercial driver's license. This is very popular right now because there is, a lot of demand for CDL drivers. 70 lessons, so about 7 hours of content. And this does not take the place of a CDL training program, but it does set someone up for success because it helps them with the vocabulary they need to learn about, how to drive a commercial vehicle. And then I know that there was a question about internationally trained professionals. Engine did create a course where learners are working on English skills as well as, how to talk about their qualifications, how to apply to jobs and interview, as well as how to advance their career. So I did want to just share that information with you, and we will go back to questions because I do see there's a question about foreign trained lawyers. We do not have a pathway for foreign trained lawyers at the moment. And then in the Q&A, can we see a lesson? I will put in the chat a link to Engine's group chat, oh, sorry, group demos. So we do have regular group demos that we offer. And that's the best way to see Engine in action. We will do a group demo. So I will put that information in the chat for anyone who wants to take a group demo with Engine. I encourage you to join in that fun.
And then Ted, there's a question about cost. Do you want to address that?
It does depend on the volume. So Engine is, we're a B2B model. So we work with organizations that are working with English language learners at scale. So a program can, purchase, any number of licenses from 25 to 2,500 and beyond. And so the price is going to depend on volume. They are annual transferable seats. And we do have a current promotion going on right now. So I will put an example of that promotion in the chat. This is our back to school promotion. It is at the 100-seat volume, but we do sell smaller volumes of licenses. So I will put that in the chat. And again, thank you. Anyone who wants more information about Engine or who wants to learn more about the amazing programs at Front Range Community College, our emails are on this last slide. And I am going to put that link to the group demos in the chat. So give me one moment to do that. Any final thoughts, Chris, that you want to share?
No, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. I think one of the things that's exciting about apprenticeships is there is such a focus on adults. It's a way that we can see training adults who want to get into careers. And I think that this Engine is just an important tool to support adults who are expanding their English language competency so that they can have that confidence and skill to move into employment.
All right, and I did add our flyer around, our back to school promotion. So that is available in the chat. So if you're interested in that, please do reach out via email. Also, if you'd like to see Engine in action, we do have these group demos. So anyone can just click on that link and sign up for one of those group demos.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tad. I did launch a poll for everyone. Thank you for joining us today and have a great week.
Yes, thank you for joining. Thanks, Chris, for sharing your insights into the programs at Front Range. And thank you to everyone who came to today's session to learn more and to try to bring work-based learning and apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs to their institution.